Literally, the most fundamental thing to creating a story is picking a protagonist and an antagonist. Traditionally, we're taught that the protagonist is the driving force in a story. This particular character is someone that has a clear goal, and we follow their struggle against the antagonistic force. But what happens when a story has no protagonist? And for that, I want to discuss Attack on Titan. You see, Attack on Titan presents a challenge to the conventional style of storytelling. At first glance, there is the main character, Eren Yeager, but toward the end of the story, it's very clear, or at least to me, that Eren really isn't a protagonist. He does not guide the story. In fact, he is a character that we are following that has actually been consumed by the story itself. Instead of being the hero of his own tale, he becomes something else entirely. He is the antagonistic force that drives the story forward. And since there is no opposition, all you are really seeing is an antagonistic force have its way in the world. Ideally, a protagonist is a character who actively drives the plot forward, working toward a goal while encountering and overcoming obstacles. Their choices shape the world, and the story is ultimately about their growth. Most notably, we can see this in the hero's journey. Now, at first glance, Attack on Titan makes us believe that Eren fits this mold. He has a clear goal to destroy the Titans, to reclaim his homeland, and to protect his people. Classic hero's journey. Slowly, the story shifts from Eren's struggles with his goals to a much larger abstract concept, which is this cycle that we all live in, this cycle of hatred, of fate, and basically living in a period of history. By the time we reach the final season of Attack on Titan, Eren is no longer the main driver of the story. Armin, he's a strategist, a thinker, but ultimately powerless. Mikasa is just the protector who only reacts to the chaos. Even those who oppose Eren, Reiner, Marley, the Jaegerists, they don't really fulfill the role of a true protagonist. They aren't fighting for victory, they're fighting to survive. Every faction and every character seem to be a smaller piece in this larger war machine, as if they are all proponents and victims of the hatred that was imposed upon them. The reason why I consider Eren to be a red herring or a character that is intentionally used to lead us astray is because he believes he's still the hero. In his mind's eye, in his imagination, in his own world, he believes that his version of the world events, his memories, are the best way to move forward. See, in a lesser story, we would see a writer use Eren's increasing brashness and boldness and him charging forward, regardless of what happens to his friends, as a descent into villainy. This protagonist, this hero, now has to play the role of a villain, which would show us a very clear moral turn. But Attack on Titan doesn't do that. Instead, it keeps us inside of Eren's perspective just long enough, just long enough that we begin to question everything. And this is so true because we see later and down the road how once he learns the truth about Ymir, how she was enslaved, used, discarded, Eren doesn't offer her freedom. He doesn't break the cycle. He encourages her revenge. He actually uses it as a way to justify his revenge. And when he basically says, "You've been waiting all this time for someone to tell you that you're free," it was not an act of being a hero. It was not. He was not being the hero. He was being a manipulator. He was capitalizing on the fact that she wanted to be freed, free to enact her revenge, free to dole out all of her hatred on that world. And he said, "Yeah, you can do that. Go right ahead." He seized the opportunity to push the world toward destruction. And the whole time, we were thinking, there's got to be a reason. I mean, even when he walked into that town, cupped that little boy's face, and said, "I'm sorry," they violated when they showed that little boy getting squished. Why are you showing the baby getting squished? That is tragic. And Eren knew what he was doing the whole time. The second layer of this story that makes Eren so sinister as an antagonistic force, the ability to deceive himself, others, and us. At any point he wanted to, Eren could have changed the cycle of events. He could have said, "Nah, it's not going to go down like this. I see the future." It was such, like, I can't even explain how much, like, pausing and going back and pausing and going back I had to do, because when he said that he is the reason his mother died, because had he not turned the Titan her way, none of this would have started, only for him in real time to wipe his memory and then become king of crash outs when his mother died. So he's deceiving himself, he's deceiving others, and nobody knew until the very, very tail end that this is what he wanted us to do. We have to stop him. He forced the world to fight him. He forced the world. He didn't say, "No, I'm not going to bring harm. I'm going to bring peace. I'm going to unify everybody for them to fight me." He said, "Nah, the only one standing is my kingdom." And I felt so betrayed. I'm not going to hold y'all. I felt betrayed because from the very beginning, seeing the world through his eyes, his anger, his grief, I rooted for him. I said, "Nah." I mean, my friend is kind of going crazy, but he's justified. He wants justice. So imagine at the end when I'm like, "Oh, he could have been with Mikasa. He could have lived on a hill in safety." But he said, "F this whole world. F the whole world." And he knew he was going to wipe their memories. He knew he was orchestrating global genocide. And he knew that he was going to force his friends to kill him. And so a protagonist, let's get back to it. A protagonist is usually someone who is heroic, who can be looked up to and seen as like a role model. They operate in honesty and according to their convictions. And by Eren erasing people's memories, it would have been different if he allowed the memories to stay. It would have been a totally different story if he knew what he was going to do from the jump and everybody else knew what he was going to do from the jump. That would have been a good story as well. This was good, but that would be crazy. So, because he hid what he was doing, no one could really challenge his actions into it until it was too late. As I was thinking about this video, I thought of another protagonist. Someone just as devious, but not so much a crash out. Everybody, round of applause for Lelouch v. Britannia. So now let's compare the two. Lelouch did orchestrate mass destruction. He did. But for some reason, his version of why he did it seems so much more justified than Eren. And here is the one difference that I found when I did a little bit of research. And it goes back to fate, the manipulation of fate. Do we have free will, or are we just following a predetermined course that's been set out for us? I felt like Lelouch had control over his fate. He did not allow the memories of Ymir or memories of a Titan or future memories, I don't know what it's called, like clairvoyance or something, to dictate his actions. He didn't succumb. Like there was no ability for him to know what his actions would be. So he was a willing participant, whereas I feel Eren took a step back and he said, you know what? This is what the end is. I am going to allow these events to play out, and I am going to work behind the scenes to keep anyone who would be opposed to that from figuring out what's going to happen. Even Lelouch's death was his own decision. You know what I mean? Like he actively thought, yes, this is the way to bring world peace. This is a way to stop the cycle. Whereas I feel Eren was trapped. You know, he was trapped by the memories of the Titans. Like from the moment he received those powers, he just decided to follow the path. He became a willing participant, actually inert. He just allowed himself to be pushed upon to finish or fulfill the next part of the cycle of hatred that he was born into. By the time the story concludes, it tricks the audience into believing there's a protagonist, only to reveal he was the antagonist the whole time. It leaves us questioning everything Eren did. If he truly changed the world or perpetuated the same cycle. Eren wasn't like inherently evil, but he chose to embrace what we would believe to be an evil decision. And I think that is just woo. Anyway, that is why I think Attack on Titan has no protagonist. Let me know what you think down in the comments about Lelouch, Cycle of Fate, history repeating itself. If you like the video, I'm going to continue doing analysis of story elements. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.